Every South African has the right to food. However, millions of people are starving and do not have access to proper nutrition every day. The effects of food insecurity have ripple effects not only on the ability to live healthy, but also on the ability to contribute to society. But how do we ensure the right to food is protected and fulfilled? Let's talk now to the founder of Millhouse International, Redinger, joining us now from Pietermaritzburg in the Hilton. He's in the Hilton there by Pietermaritzburg in KwaZulu-Natal. Good afternoon, Andre. Thank you very much for your time. Why, firstly, just an overriding question, why did you think it was necessary on this Human Rights Day to highlight the issue of food and why it's an important right for everybody to access nutrition?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me. Well, firstly, it's obviously the sign of the times. If we just look at over the last 3 years and what our population has to endure, from COVID through to increasing prices caused by international volatility in markets, specifically in the supply of food and the cost of food, and critical elements such as fuel, it is our citizens that are struggling the most. And then we need to go to the 30 rights that are contained in the document in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was created in 1948 by the United Nations. And very specifically, point 25 refers to the rights to food and shelter, specifically focusing on children, the elderly, the unemployed, the disabled. We all have a right to basic food.
So that's why you decided, because of the challenges, and to remind us. So how badly are we doing in terms of ensuring that South Africans don't go hungry?
Dan, we just need to look at the actual environment South Africa is exposed to and also the volatility of our citizens as of last year. There's a real need to address what the voice of the people are saying, and is that there are basic needs that need to be addressed, especially amongst our children. And at Millhouse International, we're also focusing on the children and the elderly, where we need to be cognizant of the fact that if you look at the cost of the bread basket and what people are earning, that discrepancy is increasing. And although there's been an increase in the minimum wage, it certainly doesn't address the disparity that exists. There's a real need. With our foundation at Southern Lodestar, we have noticed in feeding our children and working within the communities, the increase in vocality of the people, of mothers, of fathers, focusing on what the basic needs are, not only for themselves, but specifically for their children. And ultimately, there needs to be, and looking at the food basket and the quality, the nutritional quality of that food basket. And there's real action that can take place. Pragmatic action, that if all role players just sit together, I'm telling you now, Dan, we can resolve the situation cost effectively. There's no need just to stand by and have a look at the situation and just assume that someone in government is going to make a move. We as private citizens, it's our responsibility as well, as employers, as fellow brothers, sisters, to assist each other in our spirit of Ubuntu.
Yeah, and I mean, you've mentioned the International Bill of Rights, and I was just quickly checking what does our Constitution, which is very much well regarded as one of the best constitutions in the world. What does it say about this point we're talking about? And Section 27(1)(b) says everyone has the right to have access to sufficient food and water, and I'm emphasizing the word sufficient as I read here. And Section 28(1)(c) states that every child has the right to basic nutrition, shelter, basic healthcare services and social services. I know you are mentioning the fact that we as citizens, private sector, we shouldn't stand by and just observe and say government will do something. But under the Constitution, government has got obligations in terms of fulfilling and making sure that those sections I've just referred to of the constitutions are fully implemented. So government does have an important role to play.
I agree with you 100%. I'm referring to the multidisciplinary aspects that I'm talking to, where government needs to be involved as well. There are some fundamental food programs through government, such as through the South African Social Security Agency, where millions of citizens do receive food. But what I'm ultimately looking at here is also the quality of food, Dan, and the quality of nutrition. We often talk about deficiency of nutrients as it's a blind disease. Most people can look well, but they're deficient in the critical micronutrients and vitamins they require. Now, in that, we speak to awareness, and we, as a private company, engage with government both in the Department of Social Development, the Department of Higher Education and Education, the Department of Health, where our foundation works in partnership with government, where they also do assist us in creating and facilitating environments in which we can reach citizens that are in need. But ultimately, I'm not here to criticize a specific sector and specific governments and wait on them to move. I'd rather go to them and communicate with them and say, look, this is our suggestion, where we are now able to reach millions of children with a very cost-effective modality and partner with government. That is what I'm also talking about, to be proactive. We have children that are deficient every single day in townships, in rural areas. And it's critical that me as a citizen of South Africa move proactively. And that is what we are doing. And so many more are doing the same as well, Dan.
Yeah. Well, I guess that my point I was making, I was not asking you to criticize anybody. I was just saying that government has to provide, according to the Constitution or in terms of the Constitution, has to provide an enabling environment, for example, in which people can produce, people can procure adequate food for themselves and their families, because at the end of the day, it's really all about feeding oneself in dignity. That's also a very important aspect of the right to food as enshrined in our Constitution. Do you think we're doing enough, both as a private sector, as a public sector, or are we failing our people? The number that keeps on popping in my head is 12 million South Africans are exposed, very vulnerable every day, and going to bed hungry. That's terrible.
Dan, that figure is correct. I've witnessed so many of these children and people myself. And you're absolutely right. There's more that needs to be done. And yes, government must create and facilitate. But look at our local agricultural sector and look at how we could develop and grow more of our own produce. We know for a fact that what's happening in Europe is going to affect all prices of staple foods. And where are we as South Africans growing and teaching and educating our populace in terms of growing their own vegetable gardens? Dan, we're like a generation away where we had a grandmother or grandfather growing their vegetables. And we've become very reliant on social programs, on SASSA, feeding a lot of our people. But it's imperative that we start integrating with our community and teaching our communities what can be done locally with variety of seeds, proactive behavior. That environment of facilitation requires cooperation between private sector and government on a very pragmatic level. And no, we are not doing enough as private citizens. No, we are not doing enough as government when it comes to addressing the needs of our citizens. It's imperative that we look at solutions that are under our noses. We are able, we are skilled. We have the resources to address this, and it doesn't have to take years. It can take months, Dan, if we just stand together. And all the role players, if they just get together and discuss this, I'm assured can achieve great impact on those that are on dire need right now.
Andre Redinger, thank you very much for reminding us about the right to food as enshrined in our Constitution on this Human Rights Day.